Okay, welcome back. As you can see, with Springpaw on the board, this is now the Hunter class. So, Hunter, I feel with Rhastakan's Rumble, Hunter got a lot of cards where if it hits, it's insane, and if it doesn't hit, it's very, very bad. So I think they're the most feast or famine of all these classes. Like here, Spirit of the Lynx, 3 mana, 0/3 stuff. Whenever you summon a beast, give it +1/+1. If you hit this on like 3, 4, 5 beasts, absolutely insane effect. If you don't have a beast to play with it, or you only hit it on one beast, then pretty bad. And I think that goes for a lot of the cards here. So the problem with this is that you can high roll one game, you can high roll a couple of games, and that's fine, but you're not going to high roll every game. So the games where you don't high roll, the games where you draw your Spirit of the Lynx without a beast, you just automatically lose those games because of how worthless this card is on its own. The games where you draw Bloodscalp Strategist and you don't have a weapon to pair with it, then it's just an understated body, which you do not want. So overall, I'm rather down on Hunter's power level going into Rhastakan's Rumble because I don't think any of these cards, like a couple of these cards are really powerful on their own or easy enough to trigger, but I don't think they're great. So going here, Springpaw. 1/1 1 mana 1/1 brush, Battlecry, add 1/1 links with rush to your hand. So how would I say this? I think any card that adds another card to your hand is good. For example, Firefly. So compare this to Firefly. Would you rather have a 1/1 with rush or a 1/2 body? Or would you rather have two 1/1s with rush or two 1/2 bodies? And I think it's actually a lot more situational. Like Firefly has taught me to respect what a 1/2 can do, especially if it adds a second 1/2 body on the board. Because of that, like I'd say I compare it to Firefly, and I think it's right around the Firefly's level. Now, if you get a Hunter's Mark, this is insane. This is like incredibly powerful to compare it to. To pair it with. If you pair it with the Spirit of the Lynx, that's good. If you pair it with a Headhunter's Hatchet, that's good. So there's a lot of things, and like any beast synergy here that Hunter has, like anything like that really makes it a good card and makes it, in my opinion, a little bit better than a Firefly. Let me go here. So you see Firefly here is in the bottom of the third bucket, which means that Springpaw really should be here, top of the third bucket, and you can see kind of the cards around it. Those are really, really good cards. So I definitely think that it belongs around this level because of all the various things that it can do. Continuing here, Baited Arrow. So Baited Arrow, as pretty much everyone pointed out, is just a more reliable Bane of Doom in Warlock. So one thing that Warlocks have that Hunters really don't have is that Warlocks are much more of an on the board and trade class. So it's a lot easier to generate a minion and trade a minion down to 2 health where you can hit it with the Bane of Doom. So with Baited Arrow, like obviously it can be emergency face damage, which makes it a little bit better there. It's more reliable, but it doesn't have that BS high roll factor that Bane of Doom has, which really put it over the top, which like now there's enough low demons that it's not really that great, but before it used to be a pretty good card and one of the better cards there was because of how often that it could high roll. So as a good player, as a great player, you're going to want that 5/5 a lot more than you want to be able to high roll because you can play around that. You can plan around that. So again, if it hits, it's absolutely insane. If it doesn't hit, it's pretty. If it doesn't hit, it's pretty worthless. It will hit a decent amount, so it's going to be a really, really good card. It belongs here. It's in. It is in this bucket. It is in the bottom of the first bucket. Like there's a lot of really, really good cards here. There's a lot of cards like Venomizer that really don't belong here. There are a lot of cards like Crushing Walls that you feel like they belong here, but they don't perform that well. So, like, if this bucket gets redone, I think Baited Arrow is ultimately here in the bottom of the first bucket. See here, Headhunter's Hatchet. Weapons are always good. So if you control a beast, gain +1 durability. That's useful. That's not game breaking. So you can see here the commons are actually not what I said they would be, although they still have the swing potential. So a 2-mana 2/2 or 2-mana 2/3 weapon is obviously going to be good, but how good is it? So Eaglehorn Bow, 3-mana 3/2, because 3 attack deals with so much, it's here in the bottom of the first bucket. Candleshot, because of the immune effect, because of the ping effect, and because it's only 1 mana here at the top of the second bucket. So a 2-mana 2/2 or 2/3 weapon, I think that it would be a little bit worse than those. So just by default, I would put it here in the bottom of the second bucket, even if you proc the effect. It's still a real good card, and as I said, like if you hit, it can be really good. Like if you hit the beast synergy, it'll be a lot better than it is right now. All right, Spirit of the Lynx, I talked about this one for a little bit. You are going to draft Beasts as Hunter, you're going to draft Hounds, you're going to draft Mastiff. You are going to draft cards that this is going to work with. The problem is the mana, because at 3 mana, that is a really large investment. So to make up for it, you need a bare minimum of 2 buffs, if not 3 buffs from it. And outside of Hounds and Mastiff and Springpaw, which gives you 2 things you can buff, that's not going to be easy to guarantee. So this, as I said, feast or famine. If you hit it, really, like if you hit it, then it's a really strong card. If you don't hit it, it's a really weak card. I think it will hit enough that it's not like, I'm going to say bad. I'll say it's a little bit above average. So I would put it all the way over here, bottom of the 5th bucket. So you can see there are other cards like here. Scavenging Hyena, Dire Frenzy, Tundra Rhino. These are all beast synergy cards that if they don't hit, they're below average, but if they hit, then they're incredibly powerful. I think it's like very similar to those cards. All right, so we go back over here. Blood Scalp Strategist. In my overview, I mentioned in Hearth Arena terms that hitting the effect would make this about 100, and not hitting the effect would put this probably about a 50. So it just depends on if you're going to have a weapon or not. So if you have a hatchet or if you have a candle shot, then in your deck, then there are going to be games where you'll go hatchet or candle shot into this and it'll be good. If you have a Eaglehorn Bow, you can do Coin Eaglehorn Bow into this and it will be very good. Otherwise, it's 3 mana 2/4. Playable, but not really something you would want. So as I said, it's very hard to rate a card like this because it is so deck dependent that, like, if you don't have the things for it, you don't take it. If you do have the things for it, you do take it. I would say on average, I would put it here, the bottom of the 3rd bucket, because I think that its power when it hits is so powerful that I don't want this to be like under bucketed where everyone takes it and then it hits. I think this is perfectly acceptable for when it hits its power level, factoring in like the times it doesn't hit. If you understand what I'm saying. All right, Revenge of the Wild. Everyone loves this card. I am not a big fan of this card. I played Hunter. Do you get Beast Synergy? Yes. Do you get things to buff your Houndmaster on? Of course. But it's not all the time. So the problem with this card is, first, your beast has to live on the board. Then you have to trade off your beast, which you really don't want to do. Third, then you need to be able to justify playing this over something in your hand. Like, for example, if your hand if it's turn 5 and you've got this and nothing else, or you have a 5 mana card. Like, you could play this and Hero Power, or you could play your 5-drop. And like either one of those things could happen. And let me rephrase here. So there are going to be a lot of situations where you're going to look at your hand and you're not going to have 2 mana to be able to optimally play everything out. And I think that's going to happen a lot more than people are anticipating. With that said, I think it's a really powerful card when it hits. Like, I would put it here, top of the 3rd bucket, because of its power. So, like, as I said, there's a lot of good cards for Hunter, but they're so dependent on high rolling that, like, when they don't hit, it's just going to simply cost you games. All right. The beast within. Give a friendly beast +1/+1, then attacks a random enemy minion. This is kind of like a Wind Fury effect. If I interpreted it right from the stream, and if they told us correctly, the way it works is that it does not use your attack. So this is not a warrior kobold barbarian where it uses its attack to attack at the start of the turn. This attack is separate from your actual attack. So you can play this on a beast that you have in hand and then give it rush. You can attack face with this. If you have a beast on board, you can attack face, then you can play this, then it will attack into a random enemy minion on the board. Or you could take a chance, have it give it to a minion that's already on board, have it attack that minion, then get an extra 1 damage face as kind of like a Wind Fury effect. So, powerful effect. Buff isn't really that much, but the effect is pretty powerful. The problem with this is that attacking a random enemy minion is not always a good thing, and is very often a bad thing. Like, sometimes you do not want to attack enemy minions. You want to make the enemy minions attack you. You want to use their mana and their turn to slow them down. So then you also need to have beasts either in hand or in play, and you need to have the mana to justify that. I think that's going to happen a lot less than some people think it is. Like, I think it's decent. It's definitely playable. Let me see here. But I would actually have it like all the way over here. Top of the 6th bucket. Because as I said, I am not a huge fan of the buff. I think the buff is pretty weak. And I think the effect, it's definitely powerful, but it's definitely dangerous and worthless sometimes. Okay. Over here, Master's Call. This is not going to happen. If discover minion, if all 3 of your beasts, draw them. If all 3 beasts are drawn, that's not going to happen. So it's 3 mana, discover a minion. That's bad. That's worse than a Stitched Tracker. Stitched Tracker is like right here. So bottom of the 7th bucket. There's like really no need to go over that. My throat tells me there's no need to go over that. Zul'jin, not an arena card. I'm not really sure how good it would be. I think it would be a bad card. Well, not a bad card. But hunters definitely take targetable cards in arena. Like Flanking Strike's the best card they have. And having that choose a target randomly means that it can hit your own things. So you don't have the constructed synergy where you can build a deck really around this. So it could flip the board. That's always an option. But I don't think it's really that great. I would say on Hearth Arena, I would probably put it at like a 57. Like, I definitely think it's worse than Dread. It's worse than Putricide. I think around here, a little bit above average. And that would end up being about the bottom of the 2nd bucket. Finally, we have got Halazi the Lynx. So, fill your hand with 1/1 lynxes that have rush. So obviously 5 mana, 3/2, poor stats. So 5 mana, 3/2, put 3 1/1s in your hand would be okay. I wouldn't say great. I think the problem with this is that it's 5 mana. And at 5 mana, like the 1/1s filling your hand with that is useful, but you trade a lot of tempo for that, and you don't really get the tempo back from that. So overall, I think Halazi would probably be decent. Like, you can play this when you have nothing in hand and they'll be useful, but it's definitely not something you want to play on curve, which hurts it. It's definitely not something that you want to play until you're out of cards. And ultimately, I am not a huge fan of it. So I probably put it, same thing, right around here, about 2-, like around the 60 or so. I think it's okay, but I don't think it's going to be really all that great. All right, so there's Hunter. As I mentioned, Hunter, very much feast or famine. If your stuff hits, it's insane. If your stuff hits, it's pretty poor. This makes bucketing it really hard because you have to factor both of those in. And I'm really not all that sold on Hunter, even though I gave a lot of these cards good ratings as kind of like a middle ground. All right. Stay tuned. I will come back with Mage.